Hmm. So we'll open with just a simple Hindu chant, and I'll do this very briefly. Often these things can go on 45, 50 minutes. I'll just do it. I'll do it 3 times through, and then give you the translation, which I think is written there anyway. Asato masa gamaya tamaso ma jyotir gamaya Mrityor mamritam gamaya asato masa gamaya tamaso ma jyotir gamaya Mrityor mamritam gamaya asato masa gamaya Tamaso ma jyotir gamaya Mrityor ma amritam gamaya Om. Lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from the darkness of ignorance to the light of wisdom. Lead us from the ego fear of death to the realization of immortality. So here's a song that is philosophical and mystic in nature, and it will relate to what we'll be talking about a little later. Who is the prisoner that bends on one knee? Who is the prisoner who longs to be free? Who is the prisoner shrouded in flames? Who is the prisoner uncounted, unseen, unnamed? Cherubim and seraphim, captives in the human age, descend on this place to transcend the cage. Who is the prisoner bound to the cart? Who is the prisoner crucified on the heart? Who is the prisoner locked in the tower? Who is the prisoner in this desperate, most delicate hour? Captives, drones, and saviors, mangled in the human age, fall broken in this place to transcend the cage. Who is the prisoner and what is the cost? Who is the prisoner of all that is lost? Who is the prisoner of the battle cry intoned? Who is the prisoner enshrined in this cage alone? We've returned to this human age, deformed as we are by grace. We've returned to this place to transcend the cage. We've returned to this place to transcend the cage. As Unitarian Universalists, we strive to work towards spiritual wholeness through actions that seek to accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions. One way to begin this work is by welcoming the voices of our Black and Brown siblings into each of our worship services. Ramakrishna Paramahansa, 1836 to 1886, is perhaps the best-known saint of 19th century India. Among many other things, he said, the supreme purpose and goal for human life is to cultivate love. So I'd like to give you a tale here. I've been telling folk tales from various traditions all over the world for many years, and I'm deeply in love with these tales and the mythologies involved in them. Especially because we live in a culture that tends to be mythologically bankrupt. There's nothing here but money and confusion about money. And these tales all over the world, they can save our lives. They really can. This story is from the Hindu tradition. This is from the Upanishads, which was a book that I just happened upon when I was 17 years old, and it set me on fire. And so I'll refer to it often today. I love this story. Nachiketa, seeing the shallowness of attachment to materialism, this young man, Nachiketa, went to the forest and sat, waiting for death to show itself. He sat down in a circle, and he sat through hunger, pain, and exhaustion. He inwardly journeyed to the land of Yama, the Lord of Death. There he was met by Lord Yama's 3 henchmen, famine, pestilence, and war. Yama's not here. He's out collecting rent. I was born in New Jersey, and sometimes my voice reverts back there. You have to. After 3 days, Yama finally arrived, and he was told about the patient young man who'd been waiting for him. Yama says, "I'm impressed. Usually they run the other direction." "Welcome, Nachiketa," he says. "I see you are a man intent on truth. I am so sorry to have kept you waiting these 3 days. And so I would offer you 3 boons, whatever you like." Stories always get really interesting when they offer boons, yeah? So Nachiketa, now listen to this. This is a young man. This is like an adolescent, right? And this is what he says. The first boon he asks for, he says, "I would ask forgiveness, both for myself and for all whom I have ever known." He doesn't say for myself and my best friends and forget about those other people. He means everybody, including the people who have wronged him. "I would ask forgiveness for both myself and for all whom I have ever known. Second, then," he says, this kid says, "I ask for Shakti, the blessing of inner fire, to give myself fully to the quest throughout my life and even in this very moment." Yama is like, whew. And he says, he grants him forgiveness and he grants him Shakti, the inner fire. And again, he's very impressed with this young man's wise choices. How is this possible? Finally, Yama asked Nachiketa to name the last boon. This is the last one. You can choose anything you want. After some reflection, Nachiketa looks death right in the eye and he says, I ask only for that which is immortal. Yama is surprised, stunned, shocked. He quickly reminds the young man that this is his last boon, that he could have anything he desired. And Yama conjured up sort of the typical visions. You could have a harem instead, or a royal golden war chariot with the world's fastest steeds and overhead cams. A palace, your own kingdom, computer games. Why not choose one of these? Death says to the young boy. Nachiketa answers, I have looked into the eyes of death, and after that, I know a flea circus when I see one. All that you've offered me here will perish. Sorry. All that you've offered me here will perish. It's all meaningless. I want only that which is immortal. Very well, Lord Yama says. He knows he'd been bested. That doesn't happen often. So he gives Nachiketa a very special gift indeed. He gives him a mirror. He holds it up to the young man's face and he says, I cannot help you any more than this. You yourself must look directly into yourself, past your body, past your name, past your identity, and even your thoughts. You must ask repeatedly, over and over and over again until you finally get it. You must ask the greatest of all human questions. Who am I? Spirit of light, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, giving life the shape of justice. Roots hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Well, good morning. It's very sweet to be here. Thank you. I'd like to offer some thoughts here, and I want you please to understand I am not, nor am I pretending to be an expert on any of this. All I can tell you is, and what I'll be talking about are things that I've been feeling since I was 8 or 9 years old. And everywhere I look, I just keep seeing affirmation for these things. And then, as I said, when I was about 17, I stumbled upon the Upanishads, which is one of many books that I've read and that I deeply love. And, but it just happens to be one that really speaks very strongly to me. So whatever I say here, please take to heart whatever might serve you and just let the rest of it go. What I see in this world is so beyond beautiful, beyond wondrous, but it is just so hard sometimes to talk about it. Words just don't make it. And that's coming from somebody who spends his life trying to speak what can't be spoken through poetry and song. It's never going to work fully, you know? Words don't make it, and yet I will do my best to put some words around it somehow. Still, in that endeavor, don't be surprised if I wind up looking and sounding like a neurotic goat or a chained barking dog or some kind of wild-eyed spider monkey jumping and shrieking about. We can't exactly do this with words, but let's give it a try. So let's begin here. I want to say, first of all, and this has always been clear to me, every human being is longing for truth. Every single one of us. Every blind-eyed or great-sighted follower of any religion or creed or philosophy or theory, any theist or atheist, the most wise, the least thoughtful, the most earnest, the completely cynical, the broken, they all really want truth. And sometimes we just don't even know it. Whether in a moment of intentionally, consciously reaching for the finest thought or the deepest meditation, or unconsciously reaching for yet another flavor of ice cream, in all such acts, we're just longing for truth, whether we realize it or not. And the beautiful and ironic thing is that it's always right there. Every moment, every molecule, every breath. The Nachiketa story that I told earlier proposes to us that the most important question a human being can ask is, who am I? What am I? And we're not talking about, you know, your career or your nationality. Who am I? And actually, if we look deeply, every tradition that I've ever looked at echoes that same idea. But we have to look deeply to find it. For many years, endless thousands swarmed around Arunachala mountain in India to receive the blessings of an enlightened saint called Ramana Maharshi. So many would seek his counsel, saying, I need your help. I want to marry. I am so afraid. I want to know God, and so on. And always, always, he would lovingly say to them in one form or another, who is this I that you keep talking about? He would say, find out that. Who is this I? Find out that, and all else will fall into place. Ramana also said, and please take this in deeply, he said, all human beings everywhere say I, pointing to the chest. What they don't understand is that it is all the same I. End quote. One being. Everywhere you look, there's one being. In Hinduism, in the Upanishads and elsewhere in that tradition, the word most often used when approaching the concept of God or the eternal, the word that they use most often is Brahman. Now, Hindus will tell you that Brahman, like God, is just a word made up by the human tongue to try to speak what can't be spoken. So don't get too attached to it or repelled by it. It's just a word. Whether we do or don't say God, Brahman, the essence, the self, consciousness, or some other attempt at truth expressed spiritually, physically, or scientifically, it's all the same truth. The Upanishads say, Tattvam Asi. It means, thou art that. All of Hinduism expresses this idea, as do various other traditions, but most especially that philosophical school called Advaita Vedanta expounds upon it most eloquently. The inclination then for most modern people is to ask, well, what about evil? Consider this. In Aramaic, the language that Jesus used, there was a word that he used, bisha, which is most commonly translated as evil, but doesn't actually mean evil at all. Bisha means unripe. When we say that there is only one being at the center, at the core of every molecule of every being that we meet, when we see that there is only one, then evil does not exist. What does exist, seemingly, though it's an illusion created by the tricks of ego, is ignorance. And in ignorance, we do horrible things. Those who do what we think of as evil actions, it's not that they are evil. They are simply unripe, meaning they are ignorant of the one. If you comprehend that every being you meet is the one, even if they don't all seem to grasp it necessarily, but if you comprehend that every being you meet is that one being, then you don't kill others, or hoard goods, or throw children in cages, nor hate anyone, because there simply are no others. When we meet that which is unripe in people we come across in the street, we would be wise to lovingly converse about this whenever possible. Lovingly is a key word there, and I know it's hard. It's really hard sometimes. And when we meet that which is unripe in rulers or elected officials, where we are unlikely to ever be able to converse with them face to face, then yeah, we must protest, transcend, and refuse that ignorance. Again, that which can't comprehend the one. And we have to protest and refuse the policies of ignorance at every turn. There's no question. Particularly as it now involves the earth and all of her inhabitants, including the entire human race. And we must do all of this, if we're going to do it, with a great love in the heart. Not easy, I know, I get it, but it's the only thing that makes any sense. The Upanishads also say that when we look at the universe around us, appearing as it does as all of this diversity, the word universe itself means unified diversity. All this diversity is just the various appearances of the one being, that pure consciousness exploring its own imagination. And thou art that. I had very clear intuitive experiences of this when I was a little kid, though I didn't have words to put around it. So when I was 9, though, this was a big milestone. When I was 9, one of the appearances or manifestations that arose so very impressively in this universe was this glorious four-headed creature with incomparable and miraculously impossible sounds emanating from its collective mouth. You know the creature, the four-headed creature called the Beatles. Yeah. Imagine my awe and sense of wonder when just a short distance into that Beatle experience, I heard George Harrison say, most people's reality is an illusion, a great big illusion. you automatically succumb to the illusion that I am this body. But I am not George, he said. I am not really George. I am this living thing that goes on, always has been, always will be. But at this particular time, I happen to be in this body. George Harrison led me to sitting meditation when I was 17, and I've been doing it ever since. It turns out that the Beatles weren't merely pop music. They were great avatars of liberation. So, as I said earlier, I love to tell folk tales. I want to tell you a short one now that is a beautiful Hindu tale that I heard from a Vedantic monk who is named Swami Sarvapriyananda. Sarvapriyananda lives in the Vedanta Center in New York City, and he's a young guy in his 40s from India, brilliant being. So, like this. A man spent much of his life doing sadhana with spiritual practices, all in praise of Shiva, the god Shiva within the Hindu pantheon. Okay. Day after day, he begged Shiva to appear. Lord Shiva, if only I could see you, if only I could look upon your face even once. This went on for a long time. One night, the man was dreaming of a giant mountain which had risen up into brilliant, billowing clouds. But Shiva was not there. So in his dream, he continued his request. Lord Shiva, please, please appear. Please show yourself. Still, he saw no Shiva. But the man heard a voice in his dream, which he knew to be Shiva's voice. How did he know? Because the voice said, this is Shiva. Why do you keep banging on my door? But the man continued to implore him mercilessly over and over again to appear. Finally, Shiva said, look, tomorrow I will appear to you before the day is through. Just look for the headless man. So the guy barely slept that night. The next morning, he gets out of bed and he goes around, he starts to, get ready for the day, and he goes out there and he looks everywhere. He goes to the meditation hall, but they all had heads. He goes to the bazaar. People are buying and selling vegetables and stuff, but they all had heads, all of them. It was amazing. And then he goes, where did he go next? I'm losing my place here. Well, he went somewhere else later that day, and the same thing happening. He couldn't find the headless one. So finally, he went home, and he was so depressed and despondent and sad and broken down. Shiva had said he would appear, but I didn't see this headless one. I looked everywhere. So he's standing there in his room alone, feeling so sad. And his head is bowing lower and lower, and his eyes are closed. And finally he opens his eyes and he looks at his feet there on the gravel ground. And he notices his knees and his hips, his chest, his arms, but no head, no head. You want truth? You want God? Go within. Every mystic that I've looked at in any tradition, Hinduism, Buddhism, Sufism, Christianity, et cetera, every one of them has said, don't limit yourself into believing what they tell you. I've heard many great gurus and saints urging us to stop limiting our identification to the body alone, because there is so much more. In time, the body will end, but you will not end. A metaphor, it's like this. Imagine you are hiding in a closet and someone enters the outer room and calls out, "Show yourself!" So you timidly open the door just a little bit and you give that person an old cigar box and quickly withdraw your hand. Now, in the outer room there, that person is opening the cigar box, and inside is some hair that you've cut from your head and some clippings from your fingernails. Is that adequately showing yourself? No. Oh, yes, I've met him. He's a very nice person. He's some hair and some fingernail clippings. Lives in a box. No. Doesn't come close. It is equally absurd then, in my opinion, to imagine that you are only the body and nothing more. As the nail clippings and hair are only a small part of the body, likewise the body itself is only an infinitesimally tiny, minuscule part of what you really are. Again, why would we want to limit ourselves? One of my great teachers, the poet William Blake, said, and if you've known me for any length of time, and some of those I think on Zoom have, you've heard me speak about this quote a million times because it's like a koan with me. I carry it around all the time. It might be, I think, one of the most important statements ever made by a human being, one of the top 5 at least. Blake said, "Imagination is the real and eternal world of which this vegetable universe is but a faint shadow." Imagination is the real and eternal world of which this vegetable universe is but a faint shadow. There is so little imagination in this society as it is. The culture crushes it. All the more reason for you and I to make its blossoming our priority at every turn. The great teachers that I've looked at all contend that truth is beyond all of our theories or concepts. Since those concepts are so limited, the truly wise are led to humility and love. It's the only appropriate way to approach these sublime human labors. In 1930, and this blew my mind, Albert Einstein and the poet Rabindranath Tagore were sitting together in conversation, and somebody wrote it all down or recorded it. One of them said that the reality of paper was infinitely different from the reality of literature, right? To the mind of a moth, they said, to the mind of a moth that eats paper, the literature written upon it is absolutely non-existent. A moth could eat a whole library and have no idea what they did except paper. But to a human mind, that literature has a far greater value than the mere paper itself. Then Einstein and Tagore went on to say that if there is a truth that is seen as neither sensual nor rational by the human mind, because it seems most of the time that's all we pick up on, either sensual or rational. They went on to say that if there's a truth that is seen as neither sensual nor rational by the human mind, it will remain as nothing, quote, so long as we remain mere human beings, unquote. Do you hear that? Here we are in the modern world like moths. And the whole world is one vast, endless library. The whole cosmos is one vast, endless library, which we fail to comprehend because we are too busy eating it. What I hear Einstein and Tagore saying is that one,
We have work to do if we want to unfold as actual human beings. And two, then we can arise to evolve, to become more than mere human beings. So in terms of doing that human work, here's the handicap we face. I mean, if we let it limit us. Jesus, Buddha, Anandamayama, Mirabai, Ramakrishna, Lala, Yogananda, and on, all these enlightened beings all taught us two main things. All of them. Love one another and don't let your ego run the show. The handicap, of course, living in the modern US is that not only have we failed to teach this ego warning for many generations now, not only have we failed to kill the ego's influence over our lives, we don't even know that that's what we're supposed to be doing. Now, instead, we have an entire system designed to exploit ego, a system in which ego is God. They can talk about Jesus all they want or whatever, but in this culture, ego is God. Materialism is its creed, and profit is its prophet. Materialism is constantly playing up to our ego's addiction to itself. By way of another metaphor, it's like this. If you eat nothing but refined white sugar, McDonald's apple pies, Coca-Cola, Skittles, artificial milkshakes, if you eat nothing but that, then when somebody comes along and picks the most ripe, red, natural, organic strawberry from the garden and places it on your tongue, you'll spit it out. It won't taste sweet at all. You won't even recognize what it is because it won't excite you. We've been trained to crave excitement, an addiction to excitement. Likewise, television, so-called reality shows, and so many, not all, but so many of the movies are just trying to constantly shock your taste buds and excite your appetite for more. Even with all these horrible killings, over 250 mass killings in the US over the last 6 months, and they're still making films with people shooting guns at one another. Anytime you see the system trying to suck you in with gratuitous excitement, violence, cheap thrills, it's just more materialism. Somebody trying to sell you shallow sugar and meaninglessness and addiction. Don't give them the time of day. Don't, and I'm speaking to myself here as well as to anyone else who cares to take it in, don't miss the point of your incarnation. Turn within, keep asking, who am I? Ultimately, the answer to that question cannot be expressed in words, nor can it be understood by intellect alone, but it can be experienced, and it can be known in every moment. The Atman, the soul. We are not our names nor our identities, not nationalities nor religions, not this sex nor that one, neither the body nor the mind. We can inhabit all of that to one degree or another, but it's not our true nature. Speaking for myself, true nature, that is really all that I'm interested in. Consciousness appears in this world in myriad forms, life after life, until we finally transcend the illusory ego and arise into becoming that. Love alone is the vehicle that can take us there. Through love, we transcend death, we transcend the cage, and we become, no, we realize we have always been the one being. When Jesus realized that, it was called Christ consciousness. When Buddha realized that, it was called Buddha nature. Different words, same exact energy. The Sufis, those all-embracing mystics of Islam, say, Ishkala mabud leila. It's Arabic and it means love, lover, and beloved are one and the same. There is no separation. In fact, there never has been. Jesus said, to live forever, you must be willing to die. Buddha said, you must be willing to sit on that meditation mat and die over and over again, day after day. Al-Hallaj said, die before you die. All this dying that they're talking about, it's the death of the ego. In the realization that you're actually one with it all, and that love alone is the vehicle, in that realization, you've arrived. In Vedanta, they say, death, what fear do you have to show me? Now, this guy, John Terlazzo, who's standing in front of you, I don't pretend to know all of this, to have it down all the time, okay? But I keep getting pulled towards because it makes so much clear sense to me. Really, when we look at the world around us in the big picture, why worry? Why fear? Do everything we can to make everything as good as we can for everyone, for every being we meet. There's no question. But why worry? Why fear? In this life, even when your joy decreases, you are still this limitless, eternal being. When pain arises and attacks you, you are still this limitless, eternal being. And all those things that we hate and that we love, they all pass by like clouds. Reach for the big picture. The point is, if need be, you'll come back in another lifetime and another, whatever it takes, or better yet, we'll all grasp Tattvam Asi, thou art that, here and now, in this lifetime. And then we're finally free. We not only realize consciousness with a capital C, we are home. We are that. Okay, has the spider monkey jumped around and shrieked enough now? Thank you for listening. It's a real joy to be here with you. Thank you. By way of closing words, let me just say that all I mean by all of this is really is love one another. And if we do that and let go of all of our other attachments to this, well, to paraphrase Ramakrishna, I think that we are here not merely to love, but to become love itself, to cease to be anything else. I'm not this guy. I'm not any label you could put on me. All I want is to become love itself. That's it. Oh, let us draw sweet delirium down from the moon to cut through these earthly chains. As we spill molten light on the floor of this room, oh, let us weep and whisper these many names. It is in love we blind our eyes. It is in love we fall and rise. It is in love we vaporize. We dematerialize. Like a beast confined, we claw at this cage.
though always the door is wide open. Like a thief denied, accused on this page, though both book and law are broken. It is in love we truly see. It is in love. It is in love we truly see. It is in love we are released. It is in love that we decrease. In love we cease to be. Oh, let us not be frightened. Let us not be ashamed as we open our palms in petition and we limp through the night, our hearts inflamed, oblivious to all official derision. It is in love we pay the cost. It is in love that all is lost. Upon this tender holocaust, oh, let the soul be tossed. It is in love we taste salvation. It is in love this copulation. It is in love this sweet jubilation, this sweet annihilation. It is in love we scale these walls. It is in love the empire falls. It is in love we wager all and heed the call enthralled. It is in love we're given sight. It is in love we ignite tonight. It is in love we bleed with this light. We become the sacrifice. We become the sacrifice. Let us draw sweet delirium down from the moon to cut through these earthly chains.